Our session is Winning Fast, how BWS and Torani transformed their brands with AI personalization. Our speakers are Diane Keng, CEO of Breinify, Ben Thompson, Head of Digital Transformation at Endeavour Group, and Esther Kang, Director of Ecommerce at Torani. Please join me in welcoming the speakers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session, Winning Fast, how BWS and Torani transformed their brands with AI personalization. My name is Diane Keng. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Breinify, and I will be your moderator for today. At Breinify, we specialize in predictive personalization and making it as simple, scalable, and fast. We partner with marketing leaders like themselves to essentially do predictive personalization across your own channels like web, email, and text message. You can think of us as kind of like the brain that sits on top of your marketing technology stack, helping to make personalization holistic and strategic without having a big lift on your engineering resources or months long of roadmap planning. I'm super excited for today's conversation. I have two incredible guests who have really seen firsthand how to transform this buzzy word of AI into really practical and impactful results. But I will let them do a quick intro. So Ben, off to you.
Yeah, hi, Ben from Australia. Endeavour Group is a collection of alcohol retailers. In Australia, you cannot sell alcohol in a supermarket. It has to be a dedicated store, but we don't have the three-tiered system that you have here in the US. So we've got stores, we produce, we sell everybody else's. We have e-commerce. We have two main brands. One's called BWS, one's called Dan Murphy's. BWS is 1,600 stores. Dan Murphy's is large format, more like a Total Wines and More. And my job is to bring in partnerships to help step change in our capabilities.
Hi everyone, Esther Kang here. I'm from Torani. Most of you are probably familiar with flavored syrups and sauces, so think your vanilla lattes, dirty sodas, Italian sodas. I manage and run our D2C sites along with some of our other e-commerce channels.
Wonderful. So I know we have a pretty eclectic group of individuals, but if you are a marketer that's been walking the floor, you have probably seen the word AI and the word personalization at lots of booths. I think if you got $1 every time you saw it, you'd probably be a very rich person now. So when you put those two phrases together, you can imagine it either can be very powerful and mean lots of things, or it can mean absolutely nothing at all. So let's start off with the first question, which is when you think about AI personalization for your role today and your business and your industry, what does that actually mean? Ben, you can go ahead.
So when you sell alcohol by itself, you've got less to work with in terms of like what else is going in the basket, other things that you can run data against around like trends, and also it's not the core focus when it's being sold with everything else. So there's a lot more rule building that you need to do to be able to get a good recommendation engine that's relevant, and then time and sequencing is also very different within categories, like the frequency in which you buy whiskey versus the frequency in which you buy Prosecco, or even within wine itself, within varietals, you might drink certain varietals at a higher frequency. And so being able to program all those rules in or be able to do that at scale is what's really, really hard. And so for us, it's thinking about those complexities or nuances for the category, and then being able to do that fast.
Great. What about you, Esther?
I think for us, it's really about product discovery. I think a lot of people are not familiar with or realize we have over 100 different flavors. I think your first reaction is like, oh, vanilla, and that's kind of it. So it's really about allowing the customers to discover what else they might like within our assortment. And we do that via our D2C site as well as through our email channel.
Yeah. So I know with the two of you guys, you kind of are on opposite ends of the spectrum and just like the maturity of your personalization journey. So Endeavour, you guys have been around as a retailer and selling, direct to consumer, and then Torani, you guys have recently started. So when you think about AI personalization and how to get started, I've heard lots of challenges throughout this event. Some has to do with technology, some has to do with the political environment within your own teams. For each of you, what was the driving force that told you had to get started? And what was some really actual challenges that you faced to actually bring AI personalization into your tech stack? Esther, I'm gonna pick you first this time.
So I think for us, we recently brought our D2C site in-house, and so we went through a replatforming. with a very lean team. So I think one of the things when we were exploring AI, we knew we wanted to kind of dabble in how it could make our just business run more efficiently. And in running across Breinify as an example, we knew we needed to do some sort of merchandising to allow consumers to be able to explore and discover our flavors and different products that might interest them. There was no way we were going to be able to do that manually. And so for us, it was, okay, AI is a way to make our workflow more efficient, but also we just didn't have the tech resources to help us, whether we build it or even to integrate into something that was going to allow us to do that at speed. So that was something that was key for us. And then really being able to test and learn quickly, which is something that Breinify allowed us to do. And so that was one thing that was an easy win for us to get leadership on board is, how do we do this in a test environment without having to put in more resources or hire additional resources?
Oh, Esther, that was so nice. I didn't know we were going to get a little plug right away. But yes, I think speed to value is one of the things that, especially when you're working with technology and kind of the futuristic of what's next, it can seem really exciting to jump on board, but sometimes then you're kind of tricked into it, and it's 6 months of engineering cycles. So I think the ability to be able to bring that quickly is probably one of the things that made it very exciting. Now, what about for you, Ben? I mean, your group is much larger, so what were some of the challenges you were facing?
So BWS is about 25% of the market, and then Dan Murphy's, the other brand, is also 25% of the market. Dan Murphy's had its own loyalty program. It's got like an 80% scan rate. People are logged in because they get better prices. 90% of the revenue goes through that program. So that's got a whole data set to work with. So the needs and capabilities there were very different from BWS, whose loyalty program is kind of outsourced or part of a supermarkets program that used to be our parent company, that you don't have access to a lot of that data. So I'm taking into account the difficulties that were already there around personalizing and recommending and being relevant within alcohol. You know, we couldn't find anything in the market that was already doing what we needed with that nuance, because there aren't that many markets that have the kind of the split of the alcohol setup. So with Dan Murphy's, we decided to build our own and create our own recommendation engine because we couldn't find anything available. And I think probably if we could have the time back, after 2 years or whatever it took to kind of build, start getting it live, et cetera, that capability did become available in the market. So one of the things that we kind of look back on internally is when we're making that decision around build ourselves or partner, yeah, for sure, some things aren't available off the shelf, but how close are they to being available, and could you still partner in a different way rather than trying to do it all yourself? We do have a tendency to try and reinvent electricity. I think it's a common problem for large retailers. Then for BWS, it was very different because we didn't have any personalization data, like loyalty data, to work with. And so we were looking for how can we be more relevant when people are on the site, but with limited access to data around their behaviors, or even being able to identify them as they come on. One of the things we did find is I don't know if anyone's been at the one-on-one meetings today, but everyone tells you that everything's just a snippet of code. So we used to actually write that on the board, and the first time we heard it on a call with a partner was when they said, oh yeah, it's just a snippet of code, just put a snippet of code on the website and it's done. That would be every call in the first 3 seconds. So, and it never was just that. So we were also trying to kind of work through how can we get this set up quicker and learn from the experience that we'd had with the kind of the very long journey we're on with the other brand.
Yeah, I think I'll throw in a curveball because this was one of the questions we had initially talked about, but I think it's a good segue, which is there's obviously a lot of different vendors, a lot of people solving lots of different problems. Where you were a year ago versus now, how would you assess your AI needs differently than where you were a year ago? A year ago when people were talking about it, were you essentially taking things at face value, or now are you looking for maybe ways to test out the solution first? How are you thinking through that, especially because you guys are transforming your brands? How do you kind of set yourself up for success as you're thinking about those solutions that could come in?
Esther?
I think there's so many AI tools out there now. The way I've been approaching it really is what's our problem we need to solve versus trying to go with the biggest, brightest, shiniest star. I think that's more digestible for everyone, and also to kind of scale back and scale up to your leadership. So going that route has been kind of my assessment initially. And then again, a year ago, I think everyone wasn't sure, like, is this gonna stick? Should we actually be doing something? And everyone was a little frantic, I would say, like, we need to do something, we can't not do anything. But I think if you think about what problem are you trying to solve, and do the small ones first, right? It's kind of how we've approached it, and I think that's worked really well, is how can we make processes more efficient? How can we actually use our people for other things? As you guys have heard probably many times this week, is it's not like people's jobs are necessarily going away, they're just shifting and doing things more, differently and more efficiently. So I think that's how we've been doing it. So this like personalization is one way we've approached it. Another one is like when we think about content and how we can use AI to make it more efficient and churn more out in a shorter time of span time. It's kind of, those are the things I've been tackling versus getting to the bigger projects that just take a bit longer to get to.
I think for us, we've got so many projects, so many areas where there is kind of money on the table to be had. It's as much around the prioritization that we give to doing things. The business case, there's a lot of good companies out there. The business case will work. You will have a benefit from partnering. I think it's quite rare to find, for us anyway, it's quite rare to find ones that don't make sense. It's just like, which teams are you going to put behind it? Are they going to stay on it? What's going to happen after you go on? Are the team then going to go work on something else? And therefore, if it's set and forget, what's the service model like with that partner? We're trying to move away from long, drawn-out RFP processes, which is like you're judging someone's slide deck capabilities, and more kind of like start small, test and learn. But I think for us anyway, it's not enough that it's got a business case behind it. It's like, are the teams going to resist it? Are they? Is it helping them in their? It sounds selfish, but if it's making their job slightly easier, they're going to be much easier to get on board, because unfortunately the teams on the ground care more about that than they do probably about like the kind of the top line business number that feels a little distant for them. So it's thinking about how you're going to get this in and adopted, as much as it is evaluating the solution at face value.
Great. So I know obviously there's been a lot of changes and you guys have adopted a lot of these kind of tools and solutions and initiatives. What does that mean for you guys today when you think about the success of bringing things on? How are you measuring what is successful? How has using and transforming the business today impacted kind of your business as a whole? What are some of the results that you're seeing that you think are good benchmarks that you could share with the audience?
I mean, I think revenue is always one, right? As much as everyone wants to say, like, revenue is not the only KPI, it is one that's very influential. So I think for us being able to show that revenue lift, or even just resource efficiency, has helped a lot with being able to use folks' times differently, while the work they were previously doing is then handed over to some of these AI optimizations. And then again, showing increases in revenue has always kind of been something that works, at least in our company, and I think most, right? So being able to do those two things in conjunction has been really helpful.
I would say all of that, but then speed to execute is so important for us, because everyone's like looking for the new thing, everyone's impatient. We've got a long kind of like traumatic history of like month-long integrations on things that were meant to be just a snippet of code. And so being able to like do things fast, show incremental results quickly, that starts to build the momentum within the business that shows that was a good decision, because everyone's talking about it and talking about it favorably. I think the thing about revenue and profit, like there's different ways that you can cut and attribute that, and I think whilst that's all very, very important, sometimes that's just not enough, because every single program that's brought in will have a smart person who can justify how it's actually working. It's some of those other things around adoption, speed. Have we learned more from doing it that then we can apply somewhere else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Test and learn has been also key, I think, to what Ben's saying, is reiterating and showing that speed on being able to reiterate on that test and learn, and then doing a second version quickly. Yeah, and a lot of the times the marketing teams, or the teams that actually want to go after those results, they want to do it without having to go into an IT enhancement backlog, and so it's finding those partners to work with that enable them to have a bit more like ownership when they want to do a change, when they want to test something, when they want to move forward with something.
Cool. With your guys' teams, are you, I'm guessing many of you guys are marketers that's sitting out there. Do you have a very robust engineering or data science team that's there to support you on all your requests and your exciting things? Or do you find that you're kind of having to defend for yourself? And what does that mean when you think about AI adoption?
Yeah, at Torani, we have a pretty lean team. I think that is always something when I'm talking to potential new vendors is, what does the lift look like and what does the resourcing look like? And with a lot of my experience, it's either the snippet of code is a really good one because I've been duped many times by that. And I think that's kind of one driving force, knowing that we don't have the bandwidth, and then it goes into a long queue of sprint to 25, which is 8 months away or whatever that might be. So that's been definitely a key kind of point when I'm evaluating and figuring out what's like that next tech stack that we need to implement.
We do have a very large data and AI department and team. But they kind of they want to also, not all, but many people want to be the solution versus get excited about the outcome. So we have to work, the teams will work with them, they'll take, so we've got an idea, we want to do this, and they'll go, yeah, that's great, we can do that for you, we want to do that. And then it becomes their thing that happens somewhere else. So it's kind of managing those relationships. And I think that's where being able to partner where you can give as much autonomy to the team that's actually managing that platform or has got that KPI without having to rely on, because going to the data and AI team is very similar to kind of going to the technology team kind of 5-10 years ago. They've got a backlog. There's a bunch of things that they could be optimizing and improving that also have dollar value to them. A bit of work with that team, with the merchandising team on AI pricing can deliver like millions of dollars into the bottom line, and then when you put that against something else, does that look as good? So you've got the prioritization argument there, and so be able to empower and democratize teams' ability to use platforms and use AI capabilities is what's really important for us.
Yeah, I definitely see that big trend around bringing things to be a little bit more holistic. So it's not like here's a component or here's a module, but really able to see the bigger picture around how do all these different behaviors and predictive capabilities come together. So as we're starting to wrap up, we have a few key takeaways. So I know every session has lots of learnings. This is probably the time if you have your phone. Each of our speakers did put together kind of one key takeaway that they would like to share with you. So Esther, you're up first.
So I think for me is really, AI has really enabled efficiencies and being able to meet your customers where they want to be, right? So enabling that product discovery, as well as quick go-to-market, right? And how do we do that at speed and not lose track of what the customers actually want and need?
Great. Ben, for you?
So I think for us, the snippet of code one, I'll go back to it because I think when we partner with Breinify, and we've had that with some of our other good partners as well, it took us more time to get the teams together and fight everyone's egos and get them to agree to join the meetings and get on board than it actually did to implement once we said go. And I think that's but it's finding the way to filter through that noise and find the ones that really are as quick as that versus the ones that just say they are.
Yeah, I think finding partners that think a few steps ahead is something that many of our brands, especially the customers that we partner with, have always really appreciated, right? There's always the technology part where it's a tool and you're kind of plopped in and sink and swim. You have to use the tool from day one, but there's also the strategic portion of it, which is how do you use AI the right way that actually thinks about the business need. And so for myself, when I'm thinking about key takeaways on the other side of it, which is we are essentially sharing with you guys what are things that could be successful. I know today in our session, we just touched the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure many of you guys have very specific questions to them around maybe challenges or finding things. So feel free to come and find us after this. But for me, my big kind of next step that I would love everyone to kind of keep in mind is that as we think about this world where AI is going to be kind of a default thing, a lot of times having so many tools, you end up becoming really siloed. And it's hard to be strategic if you're thinking about a solution that only works for web, but it's a different solution in email, and all of a sudden your consumers are getting journeys are very disjointed. So how do you actually start thinking about AI as more of a brain that has to sit across the intelligence layer, across all of your delivery vehicles, so that you can actually think about scalability the right way? way. So hopefully as you are perusing through and listening in on sessions, you're really keeping that in the back of your head, which is what is your AI strategy versus just saying, I need to find a solution that has AI in there, and then realizing that later none of your systems really talk to one another. But obviously, after this, if you're interested to learn more, these two will be at our kiosk on the 3rd floor, just right outside. But feel free to come by and get to know them and ask them a few questions. They're amazing, transparent, incredible people, and I'm sure they will share lots around the challenges and how they approach the solution with all of you. But feel free to come by our kiosk in just a little bit after the session. And thank you so much for attending.